Hello everybody, welcome to Fuse Room. My name is Alberto, you know that. This is a live stream, which is gonna get recorded. So I don't know if you're here from the present or from the future, but what matters is that today we're going to test SSL bus compressors, which I know we do every probably 6 months. It's horrible, but we do it because people keep releasing SSL bus compressors, companies, because it's a famous type of compression. It's VCA, but it's that thing, right? So I have a hardware SSL bus compressor that I built partially, then broke, sorta. I had an idea for sidechain which made things explode. We redid it, but it takes parts from a Duality console. So it's straight up things from the board, and it sounds the same as a Duality console, the compressor stage. It's not a 4000 compressor from the old console. It's from their Duality series chip. It's two different chips, different things, but it sounds fantastic. So we're gonna do hardware compression versus acoustic audio SAND4, which came out a week ago and which was updated today, actually yesterday, and then today came a second update with their auto release mechanism, which is huge because in dynamic convolution, having auto release, I don't know how they did it. I don't care if it sounds good. It sounds good. We're gonna try it. Then we're gonna use cytomic deglue, and then we're gonna use SSL native bus compression version 2 because it's SSL, solid state logic, coming out with their actual plugin of their own thing, which they're injecting into some consoles that they're making. So that code is something they really trust, okay? So we're gonna do these comparisons. We're gonna use it on a piece of music that I wrote because that's how I like to roll. And I never use SSL bus compression on my music, but I'm writing music for somebody who's worked with somebody who uses that on their mix bus. So it could be interesting for me, and that's the excuse, and you're gonna be guinea pigs, to know whether or not SSL bus compression sounds fine. And if it does, I'm gonna use it. And if I'm gonna use it, hopefully it sounds more appealing to my potential client. Hence, fame, money, power, world domination, that stuff. Jokes apart, let's do it. Here we are in the session. This session incorporates a couple sounds. I wouldn't say there's tons of them. I ended up using maybe 4 kicks, 4 snares, 5 divas. There's my bass line, some effects from a template, and tons of buses, of which only I think 2 or 3 are getting used. My mix A, B, and C are in series. So they go A into B, B into C, C into print. And all of the plugins you see there come from my template. I don't use them all together all the time, but they're off. So it doesn't matter. What you see there is completely off. There's tons of beautiful plugins. I would recommend you either know them by heart or check them out because they're just the deal in this stuff. But we're not here to talk about my template. I have other videos for that, which I actually encourage you to watch. We're here to test some good old SSL bus compression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ditch stuff in here. You know, if I go reset, we might maybe clean them out for good rather than doing it by hand. But I was pretty fast with the shortcuts. Piano playing pays off. Okay, so let me save and let me just call in the contestants, okay? The first thing we're gonna use is, or setup, let's call setup, not use, is my SSL bus compressor that is there. And it has a piece of tape that says SSL, so that when we had assistants and interns and stuff in the studio, people would go like, all right, I know what that is. The faceplate, the knobs actually I saved from whatever, I took from something else that we had laying around. The meter and everything is there. It's really real, like it's not a plugin, it's real. There's a camera pointed at it, there's weird reflections and light. It's as real as it gets, but I cropped it, you know, as a Stanley Kubrick of audio masterclasses or the Wes Anderson of audio tutorials to fit this scenario. I know it makes the DAW thing a little bit, you know, narrower, but we're not here for looking at things. We're here for the listening stuff, right? So This one, how does it work? Well, it's an insert as an external effects. So this is SSL hardware, and as you can see, it's set to go out on 11.12 and come back to 3.4. You don't need to care much about that, but in Nuendo Cubase terms, this comes out as a straight up external plugin. This is how Steinberg calls them, external plugins. Have you ever thought about the fact that Steinberg called these external plugins? Like, this is real stuff used internally in a DAW. No, it's DAW. The DAW is the truth. So this is an external plugin, but you plug it in, so it makes sense. Now, external plugins don't have controls. They only have a send gain and a return gain. And these are fixed, so these are per setup. This offset between send and return gain is stable. It's going to stay there. As stable as the delay, which is 1.75 milliseconds. I don't know why my gear, my whole setup here has 1.75 milliseconds. It calculates it for us, and it's there. So I can really keep this window anywhere. We don't really need a lot to look at. It's very, very simple. The second guy is the glue. Now, the glue is, to me, one of the best. Actually, let me make it bigger. Boom. Is this guy? No. The glue is, to me, one of the best VCA compressors lookalikes in digital. It's insane, this thing. And it gets you by surprise, because the moment you instantiate and use it, I wouldn't say you're not happy about it, but it sounds good, but it grows on you. It's a very nice thing. And if I had to say something that resembles the Alan Smart C2, I would say the Cytomic glue is probably, to me, the closest. It has that pizzazz that the C2 has. It's not just SSL. So for some people, it's let down because it's a different sounding SSL compressor. For me, I don't see why they would, be let down by it. It just looks and sounds really, really good. Then we have the SSL native bus compressor, number 2, which has a tinier interface. Can it be resized yet? No, right? But, we don't need to. And it's a different type of compression algorithm in code, because this is solid state logic. And, they do things their way. But these are the guys who made the hardware unit. So it would be pretty cool to, kind of know it, right? These are the people who invented it, who are making that code. So we could take this as a standard and say, this is what it is. These are the people who made the hardware version. They do the digital. This should be the 0, and then we compare against everything else. We could, for sure. But to me, it's not the best because it's solid state logic. It's good. Yes, it is good. Is it? Yes. Do you think it is? Yes, it is. But is it the best? No. I think it looks fantastic. Look at these buttons. When you press them, bam, there's no other plugin on earth at the moment that has that feeling of pushing a button. It's just, oh no, I don't want to go there. It's just so good. Look at the light and stuff. It feels good to click on it. I gotta give you that. And so this is fine. It's not that the house is burning down. I'm saying that, but these are the 2 folks that we know and everything. So when you bypass it, it just dims itself. It's just fantastic. The 4th guy is SAND4 Comp Ultra. As usual, we got tons of, nomenclature things, right? Okay, so nice interface as well. This is our Acustica Audio SAND4. We got size controls, so we can make it bigger. I propose we actually do maybe 1.25. Boom, and it resizes itself right off the bat. It's a little bit blurry, but I like that. Maybe we should keep it that way, because it's got tons of things. So it's got 3 models, one of them being off. It's the 4th one, actually. Off means off. You probably get the preamp and you get the ultra behavior if you want, but it's no compression behavior, just passing through the electronics, so to speak. Then we have a CA, then we have a CB, and then we have a CBA. For our intents and purposes, we're gonna go CBA because it's the newest thing that they've put out. And it's the one that has the auto release, which I am particularly obsessed about because I don't think plugins actually capture the auto behavior very well. We got the oversampling, which I will set to 2. We are gonna set the 2 on the SSL native as well. And it's already set to real time and render 2 on the glue. Now, the glue has a couple more things that we could or could not fiddle with. It's got linear phase for the up sampling process, or intermediate or minimum, and then you decide what kind of phase relationship you want or processing type you want for the down sampling. I keep them usually at linear, but some people told me, well, no, you should use intermediate, it sounds better. I've always used it in linear, let's keep it in linear. But this is quite interesting, right? You have control over a lot more than just the typical oversampling 2 times. This is like what kind of oversampling algorithm you want to use. So going from left to right, we have threshold, attack, ratio, release, makeup, compressor in, dry wet on the glue, and a sidechain filter, which can also be run externally, peak clip in or out, which I'm gonna keep off. And there's a range, how much compression you want to achieve at a maximum, but I'm gonna keep it at full. We don't need to, if it wants to do 20, it will do 20. We don't limit that. Look at the bass compressor too in SSL native. You have threshold, you have attack release, ratio, sidechain, dry wet, input and output. Release, I already said that with auto, they all feature these auto release, and then you have the makeup, oversampling, external sidechain, mix lock, same stuff. 1, 2, 1. There's just the range, there's the peak clip, practically it's all the same. Ratio-wise, however, the folks at SSL went further than they usually had in SSL land, because when you look at a compressor that is from the typical bus compressor era of SSL, you will see ratio 2, ratio 4, ratio 10. That's it. And you will see the attacks in 0.01, 0.1, 0.3, 1 millisecond, 310, 30, 0.1 for release, which is 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, 400, 6, 8, 12, and auto. Now, it's not quite the same even in the attacks and releases. No, in the attacks, it's actually correct to some degree, but we have this 0.1 and then we have a 0.3 rather than 0.01, 0.1, and 0.3. Okay, so we have an additional step on the glue. The releases are 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and not 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. Okay, so it's quite important depending on what you want to do and use. What does mine have? Mine has 1, 3, 6, 12 auto, right? That's pretty much that. So in a way, I don't have the 4, and I don't have 2, 4. I have 1, 3, 6. So I cannot really use 0.2 or 0.4. I'm gonna tell you, my 0.3 actually sounds closer to a 2. So for whatever reason, I like the 3, but it's more of a 200. Anyway, these are the two folks, the glue and the bass compressor, which are the closer together, right? Acoustic Audio takes SAND4 and says, all right, we do things a little bit differently. We want to piss people off, as usual, right? Because it's going to lead to more talk on Facebook, and more people in front of the church saying various words in various languages. No, I don't know. Maybe they do want to piss people off, but they said, if we test the SSL bass compressor that we captured, the one they had, which should be probably, I don't know, an SSL bass compressor, either old or new, I don't know. They didn't say. But we measure the numbers don't match. And this is, yes, a lot of old gear doesn't quite match precisely to the number because of tolerances, all that. So what they wanted to do was, we're going to write the numbers of what we measure, not the numbers of the knob position at which we measure. I think it just drove more confusion. It looks like a ninja smoke bomb in the crowd, but they wanted to do it that way. So, we have attacks, releases with the auto function. We have threshold, ratio, makeup, the sidechain filter, the dry wet knob. But then we have a lot more stuff. We have the preamp color that we can turn on and off. I will keep it on just because it's the sound of the unit, so we have it. But then we have Schmod, as with a lot of acoustic audio plugins, and then we have the bottom part. We can trim the color of the preamplifier, so we are not driving more compression, we're driving more color of the preamp stage. Or we can input trim into the compressor stage, which is the black input trim. Then there's the holds. These are kind of new. They've been adding these to a lot of their things. The attack hold, the release hold, and they will hold onto the envelope before letting go and doing its own thing. So it has various sound design changes, I would say, or modifications that it will add. And the stereo link, we can link or unlink. I'll keep it linked just so that we have everything, kind of the same behavior. We can shift the compressor behavior from left to right to more of a mono or a side content. I like that. And then there's a power thing, which is the type of compression, I think exponent or something for their detector. I don't know. We're going to check it out, because if this is the exponent, root mean squared probably is not peak. We could go to power. I don't know. We're going to try it out. I usually don't mess with that stuff, but probably having now the hardware to compare to, we're just going to see. But as a fair comparison, we're just going to instantiate stuff and get going, get pretty much the same compression values, just get a vibe for it. Old school, okay? Then there's a morph behavior. Again, TMI, too much information. There's compressor behavior, limiter behavior, saturation behavior. Honestly, I'll keep it at compression because it's just another aspect or facet of the plugin that, I don't know, we don't want. Then there's the output in dB, which outputs past, as far as I know, the makeup gain, okay? So, you could set compression in a way that there's a makeup that you like as a value, and then you still fine tune the bottom part, find that you're off mark. You use the output red knob to compensate. I think this makes sense though, that they wanted to add another one because they have so many controls. Bypass, monitoring for left, right, mid, side, delta, which is the difference. Now, a lot of people like to use the delta to really freak out and say like, oh, this is what's happening, and then you go back to it. It's becoming a trend to use the delta to just kind of figure out how things are. I am not 100% compatible with this choice, although yes, I get it. It helps for sure. But, it might over enhance your sensitivity towards what is happening to your audio. So these are the things. How are we gonna set it up? Well, I propose we set it up in one way that is, actually, let's do it for all of them. Why have I closed this guy? Let's set them up this way. We're gonna go full range, makeup of 3, so we already go 3 dBs up, release in auto, ratio 4, attack 3 milliseconds. That's it for the glue. We do the same thing here. Makeup at 3, attack at 3 milliseconds, release on auto, 4:1 ratio, no sidechain, full wet in, right? We know we want that. Then, let me just bypass for lack of a better word, we do it on the acoustic audio. So 4, attack 3, release auto, which is up here for whatever reason. It doesn't say auto, but it is placed there. Makeup of 3 dBs, no sidechain, preamp on, we said on ultra, mix 100%, nothing else in here. Fully linked, blah, 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 blah. Everything else is the same. What I have to do now is that I have to set it on my compressor as well. So let me go there. I don't know if my lab's gonna reach out to there. Probably not. Oh, maybe yes. Okay. So 4, 3, auto, makeup of 3. I have no idea what that is. So we're gonna try that for once, probably here. That's it. So now the threshold on that compressor is at 0. I'm gonna place the threshold on pretty much, I would say minus what, 18, minus 14. It doesn't make sense to just set a number because these people calibrate for different stuff. So we could get a calibration out, send a sine wave, get 4 dBs of compression, and then know that the threshold is set at the same level. We could do that, right? How do you do it? Well, it's fairly easy. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop the mix A because I don't want you to hear these and get blasted. We are going to take one of the basses, whatever, a bass that is at 0, just doesn't matter, and we go test generator. Now with a test generator sent here, and with the glue on, we're sending 1000 hertz at minus 18, okay? What I wanna set is I wanna try minus 10, okay? Or maybe minus 12, I don't know, something like it. We do it that way, yeah, minus 12. And when I send minus 10, I wanna have a straight 4 here, okay? So I'm gonna go here. Minus 16 seems to be 4, all right? Now we keep the signal, the tone signal, 1000 hertz, and we go to the native, and we try and get our needle to 4. So 7.7 at 1000 hertz minus 10 dBFS seems to generate 4 dBs of gain reduction. That's pretty much as old school as you want to get. Now we do it on SAND. We have everything set up the right way, and we go. This is funny how this says, okay, 2, 3, right? It was pointed at 2, but it said 3, right? So I just wanted to double check. So we start lowering the threshold until we get a clear, nice 4. What level is this? Minus 20.5, minus maybe 21? 21. So minus 21 threshold equals minus 16 threshold equals 7.7 dB threshold. We don't know what my compressor is gonna do, right? But look at me and how lazy I am. Are you ready? Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my SSL hardware unit, you see it on top here, and I'm going to move the needle. I'm actually gonna move the sand until I see, you see how the needle is moving there at the bottom? See there? The more I increase the gain, the more it just compresses. So I could move the sand and not bother about going there and touching it. But I'm gonna go check it, okay? So with the threshold at 0, there, I'm getting a little bit more than 4, okay? So I'm gonna go there and just change it because I am, I wanna do it for real. So here. Okay, almost. Okay. Okay, so this looks like a clear 4, but I want to go straight at the actual needle, looking it at, straight axle, not canted sideways. Bear with me one sec. Okay, we got it. Still live. Yes, James. How are you doing? Super still live. Yes. Hello, James. Welcome to the channel. I rebuilt Ethan. He's got no weaponry for the moment. Just straight up. Did you miss it all? No, I just did calibration. And I am running a 10 dB, minus 10 dBFS, 1 kilohertz sine wave through all of them. And these minus 10 generates 4 dBs of compression on all of the plugins plus my hardware. I was just checking that one. So this sine wave is always at the same intensity. And yes, go open a bottle of something red for sure. Something red and liquid, always. It could be a bottle of, probably, I don't know, powder. No, just gotta be liquid. So these compressors are all set the same. They have a makeup of 3 dBs because I want to get it into the ballpark of about 3 dBs this time, 2 to 3, in the middle from that 0 to 4, because we can't really know. Attack 3 milliseconds, ratio 4, release of auto. No sidechain, full wet, nothing else. 2 times oversampling. No oversampling on my hardware, obviously, because it's not digital. And everything else is set the same. The problem was the threshold generates different values at different positions, right? So you set something at one position, it looks completely different and sounds completely different. So I'm now sending this minus 10 dBFS sine wave, 1 kilohertz, through all of them, and I found the positions at which they generate 4 dBs of compression. I'm gonna check it out. I know mine, the hardware compressor is doing 4. I just checked it manually. I was doing that while you joined us. Then we go off and then we go back in and we see that the compressor, the glue is doing 4. We go off, we turn our native on and it reaches 4. Then we bypass the native, we hear SAND, we'll look at SAND and we have 4 as well, okay? So they're all generating the same thing. How do I know, let me bypass this guy. How do I know, actually I could do this. I could put it right on top. So we have the same green channel for doing everything. Does it do the same stuff? Of course, yes, because the SAND was at 0 at unity gain. But just so we made sure, we just put it into the insert chain. Now, this piece of music that I wrote could use this type of setting. Why am I coming up with this type of setting? Because I saw it used by people who made good movies. These settings I stole from the unknowing father of mine for music mixing in post and video games production stuff, Alan Myerson. I saw him use it once at a workshop and it was like, done. Has this C2 that he also has it in studio, 4:1, 3 milliseconds, auto release, no filters, no nothing that I could know of. And then 2, 3, 4 dBs of compression, just about that. Okay, what he does, I noticed when he was doing compression, is that he uses the output of the C2 to get him in the ballpark of where he wants the mix to be placed in loudness terms. So we're not going to do it here, but that probably meant he keeps using that as a last hardware piece in the chain. So it was field music. So I think we're going to use this setting because it kind of works. And to me, this became a sort of a standard for SSL in film production. And James says, is there a different philosophy for post rather than music mixing? So his music, he's not doing dialogue, but we're talking about cues and deliverables that he's doing. Because in that point, which are stems, okay? You do probably always send a mix. That's what I do as well. You do send a mix just so people know what your stereo mix sounds like, just as a reference. But because it costs you nothing to send it, and it just gives the producers a way to say, okay, this is what it should sound like. But to give somebody who's making a video game or a film the stereo mix down for 6 hours of music or 3 hours of music or 10 minutes of menu music in my case, or things like very short cues, makes no sense because they want to have the so-called stems or deliverables. And so how does it work? Like he will print. I'm pretty sure we should ask Alan actually, because as I said, he's very, very laid back, open to questions, and he probably answered it in other tutorials he's done, because he's been, up and coming on the tutorials land in the last, I would say, 3 years. He keeps it on. He likes the stereo mix where it is, keeps the things on, prints through them. Obviously, the way it's set at the bus level of the whole probably mix. It's just a mojo vibe thing. But, we're talking about really heavy cues. Like sometimes it's like 32 string tracks or 32 orchestral tracks. They become a cue. Those compressors will kind of always work. So sometimes when we work with music, like when we have a band and we need to stamp these out, I think we get to a little bit more drastic differences on the mix bus, because drums will trigger things probably a lot. Keyboards will not. Guitars, maybe-ish. Bass, weirdly enough, will, but in a different way from drums. And the vocals, sometimes yes, sometimes not. And then the backings, we don't know, right? So in band land, it's a little bit more drastic. And this leads us to say, should we do bass compression or on or off when we print it? But in cues, in deliverables, it sounds more complicated, and it would sound like you shouldn't compress these all the time, but you shouldn't keep it on if you had 200 tracks and then you're printing deliverables of 20 each, or 4, 20, 32, 48, but the energy levels are actually more constant than it would be. So I don't know, because of the pads, I don't know if it's because of the orchestra, but probably as a last word, he doesn't care. It sounds good. I think in the workshop that I saw, he had a massive passive, a Vari Mu by Manley, or actually, no, in the other order. He had a Vari Mu, a massive passive, and the Alan Smart C2. So these were the three compressors, the three processors he was using. And that's his mix bus. And he does it straight from, I think in his studio he has an S6, and it works. But he's got like 300 tracks, people that work at that stuff. I don't do it. I don't work with so many tracks, because I'm not a mixing engineer for orchestral stuff, for movie music or game music. But suppose you have a sound effect, or you have a video game that has an atmospheric part, but the game engine can build, speed up, slow down, loop things around. Something that doesn't have drums or percussion can become atmospheric. These are the so-called ambient version. And when they ask me, like, can you do us an ambient of it? It means, can you take out the stuff that makes people, very anxious, the things that have pulse and that stuff. So it's usually drums, percussion, and things. Sometimes arpeggiated stuff could need taking out so that it just lands and it's more of an ambient mix, right? You do deliverables, the engine does it for you. And the producers have the final word in saying, if things are mysterious, keep these tracks. But if a fight comes in, bring in the drums and make the drums distort the lower the health of your character is. And the more you are risking to die, for example, right? That could be it. And also it's because of that you want to have deliverables. So these settings, to me, they became kind of, as I said, video game or film, because I think Alan was the first person who was doing film game mixing and had hardware units, and also said, I use these pretty much all the time, even, because he has the time. He doesn't rush on stuff, obviously. They have big budgets, big productions, tons of, you go look his credits, you just, it will take a while. So, no, it'll come back. And, but it was hardware. And it struck me to see not the Vari Mu by Manley, not the Massive Passive, but the Alan Smart C2. And I was like, wow, that's an SSL clone, but that's VCA of SSL. And it's like he's putting a fair lead on it. So I have various settings which we're gonna venture into. It sounds like very filmic and appropriate. So, and those are, you say, those are pretty much the same settings I use, says James, but just for one 3dB's GR Max, which is in fact what I saw him using. Like 4 is already like the threshold of it. That number 4 is the maximum we should sometimes maybe hit, but we want to stay between 0 and 4, so it's probably 2, 3. And I think I said that 2 seconds before you came in. So yeah. I actually have a setting for a plugin that Alan uses that I haven't used in a while, and we could probably put it after, but this will pollute our tests, so let's not do that. So here we do have them, the settings you know. I propose we start by listening to this simple sketch for which I have a loop set. It's really 16 bars. This is fresh from something out of early afternoon today. This is just wrote today. And we listen to it, and then we go test probably my hardware first. Then we do the glue, then we do the bass compressor, and then we do the SAND4. You know that when the channels are blue, it means it's on. You also know that the bypass icon in Cubase and Nuendo is this yellow thing. So when the yellow is visible, the unit is bypassed. But probably that bright green, horrible looking green track is gonna be your best bet, because it's gonna go on SSL hardware, the glue, SSL native, and sand. The beautiful thing is the needles will move. So with these bird's eye view, we kind of have, everything together. I might have my hardware lower or higher than the other makeups because I haven't tested the output of it. And I think we should do this. We should. So what about this DR meter here? Let me just lower the print, and let me go here and turn the test gen on. We get a -10 straight. That's okay. Then we put the glue on, and we get a -11.1 LUFS. Okay. So what about the SSL native? -11.1. Okay, this is a tiny little bit louder. So we need to go 3.1. Let's calibrate these as well, because this could really throw us off, right? Okay, how about the glue now? Are we there? Boom, okay, yes. How about sand? Ooh, sand is even lower. So we need to go to makeup and go 3.2. Boom, okay, let me save. Now my hardware, it should come up at 11.0, right? Let's redo the glue just so I remember. Reset, 11, okay. SSL hardware, 11.7, okay. I want more gain here. Okay, makeup, here. Oopsie, it's a little bit too much. Okay, so here you see my calibration is slightly off. I have 0.1 lower on one channel, or 0.1 whatever. Let me try and I don't know. I'll never get it, but let's try and do this. I just tipped. Okay. So we got it worked. The mythical tip of the knob, which sounds actually pretty kinky to say it that way. Anyway, my hardware is not 100% perfect. It's got 0.1 discrepancy between the right and left channel. We'll live with it. And I have tuned it for, we are at the highest at the right value. So now we really have these things. Why does Alberto spend so much time to do this, and also emphasizes this concept by speaking in third person? Because This is how you should compare your stuff, or at least you should know how to do this. Then if you don't want to do it and you want to go just by vibe, you go by vibe. But if you do this, you have the knowledge of saying the inputs are calibrated, the outputs are calibrated, and we have hardware units as well. So if you end up with hardware units, you can drive signals through the units and do this exact same behavior. So, right, added value. So let's play this part. And we don't hear anything because obviously my print bus was at 0, which is okay. So I'm gonna turn it up and we're gonna hear some reverb, right? This just gives you the idea of how much reverb I put here. But we start with off, we then do one round, it's 16 bars off. We do SSL hardware, the glue, native, sand. I don't know if I want to do some more turns. Then we come back here and we discuss what we feel. Then maybe we change settings, we try again. Okay, so I have to stop here because for whatever reason, my hardware sounds a lot louder than the other plugins. So we got, I mean, you heard it, sounds good. The hardware kind of sounds really nice, but why is this wrong? Why is this not doing what we need? I mean, I calibrated that, but it sounds louder and it's doing 4 dBs of compression anyway. When I tested that, it's exactly the same thing. So we have an issue with some of the compensation for whatever. And this is what we've been sending through. So what if I send these down and I'm just thinking that, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. The routing of my analog stuff should not go back into the summing box. The reason for this is this thing right on is or should not come back here. Maybe this is my first attempt at it. The reason is I am sending it through some channels that are then coming back to the summing box, and it's normaled. So, or semi-normal, you know, some channels are. So this could potentially generate the loop back, or not loop back, but it's like a parallel bus. So we had more signal. Let me try that again. I love that somebody doesn't want to play fair. I see that already. It's like, no. I am not working for you. I don't want to do it. I'm acoustic audio and I am going to piss people off. It's that kind of day. But what we could try and do is activate Asgard. Probably this is a lot heavier than it could be. And this is a live session. Okay. So let me try and run these again. For whatever reason, this sounds louder, but it's not. And I can try this as well. If I'm not sending this here, we'll be doomed. So nope, I think it's just how it is. We have a 0 here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this guy and I'm probably gonna go -3. I don't know. They're all kind of off, right? So I think it's a matter of not the static signal. Okay, I made sure that there was no hardware problem in terms of routing, okay? And I can tell you there's none, okay? So now I'm thinking there's a second thing that is not working. And this is not the settings in the hardware, the pedals and all that stuff. It's the way the compressors react to peak material versus average material. It's the crest factor that is driving these things differently. So we did the calibration, we used our minds, our heads and brains to say this is how it should be set. We noticed that also the outputs were compensated right. Then we pressed play and they all sound different. So there could be a technical problem. There's no technical problem in here. I just rechecked everything to be safe. It's okay. So why are they sounding at different levels if a sine wave at 1 kilohertz is giving us the same loudness levels? It is because these compressors react to the material differently. So they get different amounts of compression, they get different density levels, and the LUFS, or the loudness, the perceived RMS, whatever you want to call it, the average, the LUFS, they're all different, but the perceived loudness of the song is clearly different, right? Some are kind of in the ballpark, but they're quite off. And for this reason, now we got to use our ears to tailor it at the best of our possibilities. If I were to print these and send them to you, I would make sure that they're in the same ballpark of compression by eyeing the meter. Actually, that's how you do it. Or by feel, try and get them close together. But as a first test, we gotta do it by the most technical means that we have. And then we start introducing our sort of discretion, right? And say like, okay, well, you know, it's safe, but we could try this. If we start with our ears just because we're artists and we're people that enjoy music and there's no rules and we can't be constrained, we're gonna fail miserably. We might have a lot of fun, but you don't really take out anything out of it. So the technical part is good. The level of compression is way too much, way too much. It's a lot more than I want. And at least we got things in the ballparks in terms of thresholds, but now we should really aim at getting that through the 2-3 dBs of compression. So to help me out, I am going to play things with one compressor and I'm gonna just dial in the threshold of it, okay? I'm gonna I could use kind of a copy A to B or system like that, just so that we know that A was our original. We could do that, although, well, they all have it through Nuendo and Cubase, so it's okay. I could do this, B and A, see, and do this, B and A, and I can do this. And so we revert to them all the time. They're kind of, again, the acoustic audio one's kind of, we don't know what we're triggering with it, but we save the B version, okay? I'm gonna play the sketch, which has, again, no bass compression at all. And you hear how the spikes are spiking, the average is sitting down. You hear that sound at like bar 9 and then keeps going. There's a tiny little bit of high bass from the bass line that's playing, but it's panning around very slowly. So this determines the sound stage. If we put a lead on it, things are gonna change, right? So let me try and dial in the 2-3 dB of gain reduction in the compressors I have, including my hardware one. think this is safe. This is what I would like to have. Let me go with native. Maybe it's even less than 3, but because the auto and 3 milliseconds, it's a subtle thing, and we want to, you know, gauge it on the subtleties for sure, not on the smacking 20 dBs, which is a thing as well, but I like this. So, and they're super spiky. So James said, like, the snares sound pretty spiky transient wise. Yes, absolutely. With no bass compression, whatever, everything turned down, these things are just passing through. And so they're very, very spiky. It's like there's 4 snares and 4 kicks. I can solo them afterwards. You'll hear some of them are actual electrical sort of Prophet 12 impulses. So they're very fast for sure. And the contrast, the crest between the spikes of a transient versus the average of the basses, it's, you know, I think it's a good example. That's for that reason I said, like, we should try that here, see how it tames things out. Doesn't sound bad to me without bass compression, and I would handle things differently. Like I would take the actual bass on the drums and work it out. But maybe there's a way to do it with SSL as well, at least to hear it settle down, and then it becomes that record thing, you know? As I said, I don't use SSL bass compression on my mixes, but this is a good setting that could tell me whether or not, you know, what's the difference between all these 4 for sure. So let's try and get these 2, 3. Okay, I want that increase, okay? I want that increase because I want the hardware to bring in its 3 dBs up, okay? I want that. We need that because when you have hardware, you don't have a linear gain out. So if these people didn't capture the output colors, shame on them, you know? It doesn't matter, but the hardware does have it. Actually, as I said, I'm pretty sure I remember Alan saying, I am using Yellow Smart to position the makeup in a way that it settles my LUFS, the loudness of the mix, and that I want to deliver to whoever is going to deliver it to. So that's a pretty bold thing to use that makeup gain. It's going to sound good. Otherwise, you would just keep it at 0 and then trim it through something else, right? Maybe even Pro Tools, for example. So this is nice. Let's try SAND now and see where it falls. Way over. Way over, even if we had a 4 dB gain reduction -10. It's insane, right? I actually gotta go back to the mix bus to make sure there's no plugins on, just so that why is it so much? Well, you know, it's a different thing. So we could input trim it, but I'll move the threshold. Okay, now let's try the hardware and see where it is. So I gotta move there, retouch the thing, and then come back. Let me put these somewhere safe. There's nowhere safe. So, hey Martin, hello, good evening all. I'm here for just a moment just to see Alberto doing his magic. That's very, very enticing, very, very kind of you to say. There's probably very, very, very few magic involved in here. But we got everything set up and we just came to this conclusion. We set the calibration on the inputs, sent a sine wave, calibrated all the gain reductions, everything was fine. We got all of the compressors to get 4 dBs of gain reduction, okay? Okay, so we know that the settings are the same and the threshold knobs are placed where they should, because that sine wave, that's a test signal, generates minus 4 dBs of gain reduction on all of the compressors. Hardware, Cytomic the glue, SSL bass compressor, SAND4. Perfect. Then we took a look at what loudness the output level was on all 4. We saw some discrepancies and we compensated all of them so that we had minus 11 out of that minus 10 we were sending in, right? So notice we are actually having a signal that once compressed is 1 dB lower, okay, than the actual source signal, okay? Minus 10 getting into compressor, we get minus 11 on all of the 4. So when I go from bypass to the original uncompressed to any of the 4, I should get lower, not higher. Isn't it fantastic? Have you ever thought about that? I'll recap. Okay, we have 4 compressors, all calibrated the same way. Their knob positions emulate the same compressors. So we said 4 to 1, attack 3 milliseconds, release on auto, and the makeup of 3. Okay, then we set a compression to get 4 dBs of gain reduction on all 4. And this meant sending one signal and adjusting the threshold on all 4. So once done, we had minus 10 sent in each of the 4 compressors, resulting minus 11. It's a lower signal when compressed by 1 dB. When I play the original versus any of the compressed versions, they were all louder, not lower. Why is that? The SSL hardware was the loudest. In fact, I checked if I had any technical, something I had overlooked, and everything was fine. So we said there's no issue here. But why is it so loud, so much louder? Turns out the SSL compressor, even if it was compressing the sine wave the same of all of them, and the meter said minus 4, the music itself, it is compressing it the least. It had barely any needle movement, okay? And in fact, because it had barely any needle movement, it makes sense, because you could say, well, your meter is out, it's busted. No, it was actually the loudest, because we weren't getting compression, so that plus 3 of makeup was making everything louder, okay? And it was the loudest. In fact, it's the one whose needle is moving the least from the 0. So, turns out it's okay. The Cytomic the glue was doing the 4 thing. I had to come back from it. The SSL native was doing way more, like almost 5, so I had to come back a lot. And SAND was doing almost 8 sometimes from its meter, so I moved back even more. Took it into the 0 to 4, let's say it's 2 dBs of compression, 3 dBs of compression, reanalyzed all of them. Now they're in the ballpark of feel, okay? So again, if I were to really do a comparison here, I would print these mixes and do an LUFS normalization of them at, for example, minus 23 dB, minus 23 LUFS, like EBU 128. And then I would listen to all these prints, compensated once again for loudness. But we're live, I'm not gonna do that, it's okay. We're just gonna go original, SSL hardware, the glue, native SSL bus compressor versus version 2, and acoustic audio SAND4. So then we're gonna go like, okay, what do they sound like? Okay, and then I want to know from you if you feel that I'm hearing the same stuff you are or not. Okay, let's do this. All right, so people who are not into this, so I hope you are will just naturally call the police, because obviously it's like, what is going on? It's like they're doing something in there. There must be, right? Because it's like, to me, it felt like 30 seconds. I could have gone. I wrote these. I read that Martin said, "Nice track. I dig the vibe. Thanks very much." I wrote these early afternoon today because I got yesterday night a call and they said, like, "Do you have these 4 things?" Because I am meeting with these people, and these people that this friend of mine is talking about are super, super good. Like, they've worked with video game and film people that are amazing. And I was like, oh, yes, I have that stuff. And instead, I decided to write 4, almost 5. This was, I think, the second one, sketches just specifically for it. Okay. And so, I just wrote this stuff. Now, the thing is that because these people have worked, among the other people, they've worked with Alan Meyerson. Alan Meyerson is a guy who uses SSL-ish stuff on film and video game stuff, which I have never done. But I've attended some of his workshops, and I've met him, stayed with him for a while, talked to him, like harassed him for a while. But he's super kind, doesn't show that he would like to just strangle Alberto, It's just like pretending. And he's very professional. So I appreciated that. And I remember then, and I said, okay, this song and this sketch at this point is the perfect lemon for the SSL bus compressor, because the spiking of the transients versus the average with the side chain that the drums are doing on the other instruments. And you can see that these 4 little things here, these all guitars, all synths, all grooves, all effects, these are side chain sands to, let me put this other guy for justice, to a side chain. So they're spiky and they're pushing down on other stuff. And so using an SSL bus compressor here can be the wrong move, or can actually make the record in one move. Because what I would do is, without using an SSL bus compression, I would go to the drums and try and gently shave, and it would be a microscopic operation to gently shave the upper transients, not with volume, not with parallel compression, maybe with clipping. I have to see where and how to do it, even in battery, because these are battery libraries that I've built with different samples, to just shave it off. Tape usually doesn't work for me, so I'm more for a clipping kind of thing. And then leave the buses be, okay? And then you would think about building the sound of your sketch, right? Through bus compression as well. The thing is, if you get it with an SSL bus compressor, and I think it does it justice, right? I'm kind of excited. You hear? I'm kind of excited. If you do it on the SSL bus compressor, you not only solve the thing in a very musical way, but you create the record. It gives that something that makes you want to go back to bar 1 and go and go and go, even more than it hopefully was already, So Martin said, I dig the vibe. Thank you very much. Because, this is just a pre-launch thing, but I like it. I like it. And it's, they gave me a couple ideas and I was like, oh, yes, I have that style of music. And instead I wanted to write this. So I hope it works somehow. This would be underscoring. This would be a good gig for the people who are in, but we're not there for that stuff. Reading the chat, because I've been missing here. We got activity here, right? So, okay, no, I have it. So James says, snare on the hardware is fantastic. Agreed. Then I will elaborate on what I think about it. Martin said, I preferred the hardware, but on the second place to me is the SSL bus comp 2. It's a bit pokey sometimes on the transients, but not bad at all. Okay. And Lovro, hello, welcome to the stream. He said the SSL is better than the hardware. So the solid state logic is better than the hardware. And I will elaborate on it because I think they're all cool. Jim said native is close indeed. And Lobro says there is more space on the SSL native and less glue, but the tone is the same. But that's a very good statement. I think it's just like, okay, let's remember that. Thanks, Lobo, for writing that. There's more space on the SSL native. There's less glue, but the tone is the same. Okay, so remember my SSL hardware here, this dude, is a duality thing that we took from burnt boards that were being sent back to Cambridge, wherever that, Oxford, wherever is the SSL thing. And I made an SSL bus compressor out of it, then broke it because I wanted to use sidechain in a weird way. And then a friend of mine fixed it. I don't know if the sidechain works. Okay, so, but it's a duality console compressor, not the console, just the compressor thing. That cheap, modern, not the old SSL bus. Okay. And Elimor says, hi, Alberto, what do you think of Team Patrick L bus? Okay. Martin has, which is in chat, who is in chat here, has that plugin. I haven't tested it. I know a lot of people love it. And it would be a good test, obviously, to put in here. And Martin said, I did a firm test lately, but to be honest, I prefer the action of the SSL bus comp 2, just my personal taste. I think a lot of what I want to not teach here, but just like, point out is that this video, yes, will give us a good, overview of how my piece of music will react to it, of course, but not any style of music, not a country song. But there's, SSL stuff works on so many levels that you should test it on every kind of genre, but it's still the same piece of music, right? So how does it feel? Okay. The sketch itself, being a sketch, feels to us as creators, I don't know if you relate to that, feels as to something that implicitly I would like to keep making better and better and better and better. Okay? I don't know if you're like me on this one. I see no end in how better I could make it. I only think it can be not good enough, but it cannot be too good. Okay? So beyond that zero, the levels of positive is infinite. Okay? But I am almost always trying to get to the zero, not to, because I live in the minus one. I think it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready. Until I place some processor at a stage like this one. Okay, I can show you there's not a lot of stuff in here. Let me just hide the plugins. Look, it's just, I wrote these and then I will kind of dissect it into a little bit more of an evolution. But these 16 bars are what? 35 seconds, okay? And that's what I get asked. 30s or 29s, 39s are commercial size, right? So these are 35s. It's sketches. They don't need to hear how I develop songs or stuff. They just want to hear, how does this guy hear these type of menu, this type of music? What kind of music does it make? There's 5 divas. There's 1 bass line that is here. There's 4 kicks. Drew Max, I haven't even used it, just sketched it, and 4 snares. Okay, that's it. And I don't even think I've tweaked the divas. It's probably presets from some sound packs I've bought or stuff. I don't know. There's no hardware synths but the bass line, no movements, nothing. Okay. Now, as I said, until I put stuff on. Okay. When I say, well, this could be better, this could have become better somehow. Let me try. Let me put on, for example, a bus compressor. Well, now I'm kind of picky and I go, wait a second. No, I actually liked it better before. I start hearing the things I've given for granted in terms of how I've moved the sounds, things that I was happy about but not proud of. I become proud of because of like, wait. No. That sound has to come left to right, front to back, and it doesn't do it any longer. I don't want that, And so because of these tests, you go like, well, do I want this plugin on it? Is it the right settings? Of course, maybe it's not the right settings, but they're all set the same, right? So to me, the glue has a dark vibe somehow that, and it's not a dark plugin somehow, but it's got, I like how it glues things, right? It's called the glue. So this, the, puns, jokes on me, but I like not just how it packs it, I kind of like the movement of, but I would personally make up more. And I find that the reason why I would make up more, and I will give you, I'm not a genius, I'm looking at the meter as well. It confirms the feel that the auto release is surfing slowly, a little bit more slowly than we have on the other compressors, including the hardware unit. So the auto release on the Cytomic is really silver lining thing. So on a 4:1, it's a strong compression ratio, but we have a slow release. And so this boxing factor becomes a little bit too much. But for how slow that release is, I still believe the glue is just awesome. It just sounds really good. I just would like it to be a little bit more up. So if I were to go for kind of a darker kind of thing, it could be that it loses some in your face. So, and I think the thing you liked, I don't know if that's okay, if there's something you like about what I wrote, is that that sense of release, All right, Martin's right. How about the SATs? Yes, we're gonna do it in a second. Once we know these four, we're gonna play that game of saying, now that we tune your ears, how could we do it on another compressor? That's true. Thank you, Martin, for saying that, because we're supposed to do the SATs as well. That's a perfect scenario. We're gonna do that this way, tuning our ears, and then we become used to. How about you want to try Team Ps? You have it, right? Once you have these ecosystem, 4 is already a lot. So this is the glue to me. The Bass Compressor 2 by SSL Native is, I gotta be honest with you, the zero of the SSL thing. It doesn't quite solve the micro transient management, which, I'll be honest with you, the hardware is the only one that does it to me. And it still kind of has a little bit to shave, so that 3 milliseconds on the hardware isn't faster on the whole material. It still breathes right, but it's micromanaging better those little things. Granted, of course, I want you to know that I know there's wires, there's the D2A from my Aurora going into the patch base, Bantam cables, and then there's the A to D again into the Aurora. So there's 2 stages of conversion. We're talking about super fast transients, electricity, any analog piece of gear maybe would handle that micro transient management, because it's the typical digital versus analog thing. However, the SSL Native has the advantage over the glue is that if you hear the original, I slap you a lot. It goes like back, front. There's one snare hit that just feels cleansing. It's about the sense of release. It's that, I wouldn't say this is vaporware kind of, futureware kind of give, but it's got a little bit of the, dancing thing. It just helps you release energy. It just feels good to be in the loop, right? That stuff. And the SSL Native kind of enhances that. So as Lovro said, there's more space on the SSL Native, but there's less glue, but the tone is the same. And I think that compared to the snare, to the hardware unit, especially on the snare, the tone is really close between the two. The only thing is, the hardware seems to decide on its own on that very unique hit. At each one of the hits, it seems to be human somehow. I don't know. It just splits the hair even more and says like, well, you know what? This one, I get it. It's gotta be that slap. This one's gotta be a little bit back. And the SSL Native is kind of averaging that. But in terms of tone, right off. I mean, that's a plugin right off the bat. So you would say like, how much do you want to pay for that compared to all the cables and converters and stuff? It's that last 5%. However, if you just let go and stop microanalyzing it, the hardware crashes it right off the bat because it just feels like music. It's just it does that SSL thing. It just goes that I can hear I've played with drummers that in rock bands, they don't just play the snare right. They have that hit. They just play better than other people because of that hand movement. The way the organism, the way the dance of the arm happens, when that snare gets hit, it's physical. And you can see it happening each 2 and 4. And when you're playing next to them, you're going to get a headache as usual because you have a drummer next to you. But these people are hammers without, pushing any strength into it. They just happen to have the right articulation. The hardware kind of feels to me like that, but the SSL super close. And it's up to a point where it's not the plugin, it's digital versus analog. You're never going to get that. So, and Lovro says the native lifts reverb better. So that's also true. So again, I think the auto release is what we have to microscope our way into. The SSL native has probably the fastest, yet still very musical auto release. And yes, and Lovro says, I said it while you were typing it. Auto release is the reason probably. I agree. It's that thing, because if it ever so slightly pushes there, the reverb's being held back, right? And so at that point, you might prefer the original because then you have kind of it's breathing better, but you don't have the glue factor, you don't have the vibe, the mojo, the record. I think when you put an SSL compressor on, you want to lose stuff. You don't want to gain stuff in absolute terms. You want to lose stuff. And in that loss, you want to become the record. You want to just lose the overthinking, right? A lot of bus compressors we put because we want that. James says, my position is this. I'm not using an SSL bus compressor to get discipline in the mix. I'll do that elsewhere, and I'll definitely be using a clipper on those snares. Exactly. Like sending and feeding the bus with those samples is just hard. It's a hard day's night, right? Because it's just pure digital sharpness. So without anything, I don't even know what the drums have here. Well, the beats do have a 660 here. Let's just take a look. Well, so they do have like a BC23, and they're kind of a little bit darker here. There's a minus 0.4 at 5500s, minus 34.7, ratio 1.5, attack 2.7. I touched it. No, we're never gonna get that. So don't say from now on. But it doesn't matter. This could also be the typical 33609 or Neve over-smacking thing. So I don't know. At loud volume, again, it might help. At quiet volumes, those spikes really come out a lot. So I would clip them probably before even sending them to reverb. These folks is one of the best reverbs ever made. If you don't have these, just maybe don't get it, because it's how I get the sound of my stuff. Not that it ever got me anything important, but I'm attuned to that reverb. Anyway, SAND4. What did SAND4 do? Okay, so SAND4, I said it on Discord, but there's people in here. Actually, thank you very much for joining me today, you people of the outside of the Discord. I said it on Discord. SAND4 sounds to me as a boutique VCA compressor on a lighter term. For example, like a townhouse compressor in plugin format. If you have that, Plugin Alliance makes that. The townhouse kind of has that, right? And so Lovro says it pushes music forward and maybe has a longer attack. I think it's probably kind of a more permissive attack. And the auto release is as fast as the SSL, but the envelope movement feels different. And to me, against the other two, it still kind of jerks a little bit, right? Unfortunately, the verb I'm looking for is really it jerks a little bit. You know, it's like having a bearing in a mechanical element that is just ever so slightly with the play on. And so all the force, all the torsion that we need to have is ever so slightly translated off axis, and it just doesn't go on the gears. All of that, right? Might or not be an RC auto comparison thing, because I have some differentials to rebuild, which I haven't still done because I stripped them. That kind of guy. Anyway, it feels like it's not cogging, but jerking a little bit. And so sometimes I don't hear it grab. It has a nice texture. So again, like all acoustic audio compressors, if you play tame on longer values, I think it sounds good. It's not awfully going there, but coming from the glue and the SSL, it's like, all right, what is this? This feels more modern boutique mastering VCA compressor, not SSL bus compressor. It feels like a mastering VCA compressor. I wouldn't even say a vertical sound VSC would be there, because that thing is pretty thick and it's pretty grabby. This feels more like it's not like a dangerous music either, because that thing is very nice, oily. But it feels like an open boutique VCA mastering compressor of sorts. It's not unstable, but for being 4-to-1, it feels like the attack is not crunching on things that much. So what I will do is, and I put a mixer delay here as well with 2 dBs, just so that we have the original pumped up, so that we no longer have that grab. What I still believe is that the values on the attack and release on the hardware are ever so slightly being changed. They're being adapted somehow. So if it gets smacked in a specific way, that 3 milliseconds on the hardware just shifts. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's the imprecision of the hardware, but it sounds so good. It almost errs on the human side, which I like. Plugins are more like, you said 3 milliseconds attack, no problem. It's going to be 3 ms all the time. And sometimes you wish it had that control. Acoustic Audio's version probably is the one that feels looser, like more loose, but it doesn't go towards the musicality of the hardware either. So Jordan says, do you think the jerking sound I now invented, I coined a term, it jerks. Just don't say the whole thing, don't add anything to it, it just jerks. Do you think the jerking sound can be solved with the extra controls? And Joren or Joren, I don't know, maybe Joren. Joren, I don't know. Which one is it? Number 1 is Joren and number 2 is Joren. So say if it is 1 or 2, or maybe not even 2, it's 3 and I don't know it. So you just got here and you're not sure if I said that already. I actually haven't, but on Discord, number 2, Joren. Okay, awesome. I forgot which is 1 and which is 2 already. So I didn't say here, but I said it on Discord, that because we have so many controls, okay, this is great. Number 2, awesome. So I am thinking you could kind of tame it for sure. Even the holds, attack and release, which I almost never use, but I would start from probably the power and or probably the schmod and power, but I've tested power lately, and I would say maybe power by keeping the schmod there. And the one mistake I've made on acoustic audio things is that if I'm trying to get these to sound closer to the hardware, I would go from 2 to 3, okay? And instead, or 2 to 2.5, I think you should go on the 10th of a thing and just do one move at the time, and unfortunately get fresh ears and try. Like schmod 1.8 or 2.2, and stop, and then go to power and go maybe 2.1 and stop. I'm thinking between those two parameters it could be there, but acoustic audio is still building and building and building on envelopes. And they know that they have to work hard because they come from dynamic convolution. So it's completely different, and it's not meant initially to be for compressors. So dynamic, the time domain is even harder to do than on regular plugins. But they got the tone down when they capture the preamps, the stuff. In my tests, which I will recommend to you as well, the non-ultra preamp to me sounded more like, for real, doing things for real. And I didn't trim it. We could try and also get it a little bit more ballsy, but I think the zero in this case kind of felt okay. Kind of like the ultra better. So as a test, suppose you have your own plugin, right? Which is, as Martin said, Martin remembered, we have another plugin that I haven't tested, which is a bus compressor I really like. It's the Satson CS. Now, this one, and Joran said, thank you for the answer. That's how I usually approach acoustic compressors. Yes, absolutely, yes. A lot can be done to improve it up to a certain point, and then, of course, it's up to them. But those parameters are time-consuming, but you can then fine-tune it, save your preset, probably not even touch them any longer. That's how I would do them. I would save a version of my own SAND4 that I like or feel that is closer to the hardware, and then save a preset as a starting point. Maybe those numbers I will never touch again. I will go to attack, release, ratio, makeup, that stuff. Sometimes it's a funny thing with SAND4 because for how much I hate how acoustic audio does stuff, they know. I've been criticizing a lot of them. I'm like, wake up, it's 2024, where have you been, and they're like, we're doing it, but do it and then release stuff, not doing every week, but so we have our divergences, how divergent views, but I think sometimes something cool comes out and you get a plugin with settings of yours that really sound kind of peculiar, and then it feels more yours. Does it make any sense? Probably. I don't know. But that's true. It's a fun experience sometimes, but you gotta do it not when you're mixing, just for fun, for sure. But I would like to grab them by the tie and go like, what are you doing, tortellini, all day long? Get to work. Anyway, this one is a channel strip. So Satson CS has taken people to say like, and this is wrong. What happened to it? Okay, we're back. We got a glitch. Satson CS has a bus compressor by the look of it, but it's a channel strip plugin. So people are like, did you put a bus compressor in place of the channel compressor? And I don't remember even what Sonimus said, but I've been using this clearly as a bus compressor, also in channels. I think it sounds good, but it doesn't have the expander gate and the timings of the channel. I would still wish that Sonimus released a module with the channel dynamics, with the gate and expansion modules done right, because I think Waves got it right when they did it. The expansion compression behaviors are one thing in the circuitry. Sometimes you use the expander on the SSL just to get more snap, not to actually expand, So the UAD has it as well, but I think Waves kind of broke through initially with that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do 3 auto, 4-to-1 mix, stereo link, no sidechain, amount. Okay, we have to tune our amount. Let's send the generator here. I love the meter, but look at that auto release right there. That clearly is a very slow auto, and this is part of why we didn't initially get it right. Okay, so this is pretty much in the ballpark. We want to get a makeup of 3, I remember, or yes. Okay, I think everything should be set up. So now I'm gonna answer. I think I have a question I haven't answered. To check the chat, and then we're gonna try and do mixer delay, so the raised original versus Satson. Martin says, question from, so Joran, you do the same. Yeah, okay. Well, I know it's fun, but sometimes a nice slap in the back of their head would be nice, just to say like, wake up, but they're fun. So Martin says, question regarding Satson, why do you have those saturators at the beginning and at the end. Ah, so Martin got that my startup preset is this. I like this just because sometimes I gain stage things out of the compressor differently, or I filter after, and it's really convenience for me to say maybe sometimes I go here, or maybe I cut some highs, then I EQ, and then I recompress, and then I do a final assessment, and I don't bring in the saturation, and maybe I reassess the filters or this. I like to have them as a sort of a container thing, and I know there's filters in the modules as well, but I sometimes like to saturate after or before or whatever. I like to set crosstalk at the end or at the beginning. Yeah. Does double vibe the saturator? Maybe I do. Maybe I wanted to. Sometimes I've done it. Like on this stuff, there's no rules. You could do oversaturation. Maybe the producers will say, could you saturate it more? And we'll know that I should have done it. So Lover has also added Schmod, which is also, I call it Schmod. Schmod is great, especially on Tiger. It makes you able to control envelope. The possibility of controlling envelopes is great for electronic music sound design. Yes, absolutely. And even the holds, I've said it on Discord. You people, you read Discord. How can you know it? I said it that for sound design, holds, Schmod, and power are actually great tools. You shape kicks and you do a lot of sound design, not just for, mastering, right? You're mastering something and you want to use the attack hold and release hold. I don't know. Like, as we said, to design my piece of gear, yes, not dynamically into a mastering session. But for sound design, yes, for sure. So let's press play and get it going. So this guy, let's remember to remove it. Okay, so we start off right on with this one off and on. It started from this preset I had, but I just changed it. So don't mind the attack massively thing, because it doesn't matter. Nope. Okay, I'll give you my verdict on it. And I know, we didn't spend a lot of time. I think it's a good all-rounder somehow-ish. I like the vibe of it. I like that there's a certain darkness, like the glue, which again, I heard it and I was like, that's not dark. But then it settles down and I'm like, oh yes, it feels dark, but it's not dark. It's amazing how it manages the high snaps of the snares and the clicks of the kicks in a way that maybe the others don't quite contain. This feels almost like it's clipping them, but only the very bothering part of it. Does it make any sense? The problem is the lows, it doesn't do it, which is, it's might be a good feature if you have like a rock band or something, with sharp transients, but not the lows, the kicks, the toms, the floor toms, that stuff. But it solves half of the problem, right? So it creates half of another problem for me. So Martin says, it sounds very different compared to the other ones, not especially bad or wrong. I kind of agree that in between these three that we tested plus the hardware, which is still just, once it grows into you, right? That's a lot of hardware that does it, not just the hard. It just, you let go so much, and it's just like, yeah, these vibes, and a friend of mine used to say that with hardware you are more kind of pressed to say, you know what, just print it. He used to say that. Yeah, it makes you go like, you know what, just print it. You know what, just print it. You know what, it's late, let's print it. You know what, just print it. And if you say, well, you know what, just print it, it means that you have that something in your head that either you're tired or you don't want to do it any longer. But with plugins, we rarely do. We want to push more. We want to see if we have a way of doing that different thing, all that, right? So Satson kind of solves it. James said, it's taste. I just don't see the SSL bus comp as a problem solver. It's a vibe giver. That's true. It has a vibe. And I don't know what you think about the Satson, but I said, again on Discord, that it has that massive attack vibe, right? It seems to be inclined to do that. It just slumps on things, it just makes that a little bit watery and moves. Yes, it moves nicely, but it's quite stable. So it might be even better at fast releases and even more compression that these kind of general work, because what we're asking it to do now is quite, it's a 3 millisecond attack, but I think 3 milliseconds is a real bitch to do, because it's fast, but it's not fast. It's not too fast for drums. It's right on the verge for guitars where your peak energy is kind of there. Vocals become sometimes weird because you have that consonant attack, but the body's behind. It's always either not enough or too much. It's very hard to do 3. And again, it's very hard to use it as a problem solving. We could do 1 or sometimes 0.1. And Lovro said it's a different breathing on Satson. I think of all of them, it's the slowest auto release. And I find it funny if you look at them now. Look at them. The glue and the Satson CS have put their needles at rest in the same positions. So weird. Martin, you ask, is there any kind of great but affordable hardware SSL type bus compressor? If you make the investment, I wouldn't go for cheap. You would, if you have a chance to do it, like I was kind of lucky to do it. And then maybe I paid a bit more than I should because I wanted to do the sidechain, which I don't think it even works in here. I don't remember if some works or not. You could try and DIY it yourself. But then again, do you have the skills? You have the soldering iron, you have components. I was just at the right place at the right time where they were sending away a burnt board on the Duality console, and we just took some components that we needed. The rest really is not too expensive. Even the knobs, the CFAM meter, a little bit, but the pots are not terribly expensive like on Neves or stuff. So it's about that cheap, that it's always probably the one piece that costs more, and then it's about the time you invest in it. So a DIY route for SSLs, 1176s. The LA2s and 3s are a different story, but FET compressors and the VCA SSL type, you can kind of wing it on DIY. If you want to go on hardware, you go SSL Bus Plus. I don't like their just the form factor of having to go to a 500 format. So if you have it on your desk, make sure if you buy, the sound is fine. Just make sure that if you buy a 500 format, it's positioned where you can access it easily, because otherwise it's a much better choice to go with a rack mounted thing. I know it's the same in theory, but in practice, because of its height, you maybe don't place it somewhere where you should, and you end up not having it in a convenient fashion, and then you don't want to go touch it, which is the worst thing for hardware units. Make sure you can kind of touch them there. I like the Alan Smart C2 a lot. I had a couple used deals nearby in Berlin when I was there that I then said, oh, I don't need it. but I would settle down for a used Alan Smart C2, for example, which has been used by a lot of people. I know it doesn't say SSL on the tin, but in some way it's I would like it better than the old 4K console thing, because it's a little bit too big, the other one. So I propose we do something completely different. I would do a 32.1, or actually, do we have 0.2? I don't have 0.2 on mine. So let's do this. Just a quick test of these. The thresholds will change, all of them. So let's run one last test at 30. What am I doing here? 30.1. So very slow attack, very fast release, 2-to-1 ratio. Same oversampling, 2-to-1 ratio. Now, if you know, here we have 20 and here we have 0.3, whatever. I don't know. They wanted to put the numbers of their measurements, not the things. I'll go change mine here so that it's the same. 230.1. I have the most horrible knobs I could ever find, but they were free. We had these 7 knobs laying around. I actually have the CFAM knobs, and I have never changed them because for some reason, I don't know. I think it's a bad luck thing or whatever. I don't know. But you see on the hardware, I have that sidechain knob, right? I am not sure they all work, those values. So I think you need to change the SAND4 compressor to the 1 or 2. The third is for auto release. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was just added feature. Okay, so we go A 20 milliseconds. What is B? A 2.1, 2-to-1, make up 3.2, 20. I'm gonna move the knobs again, just again as bad luck or good luck. Just touch them. But we have to make sure we have the right values for compression. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the glue first. Let's dial it in. It was a quick fix and they made auto release. Yeah, right. Yeah, let's do CA this time. So I'm gonna just get the right vibe on. Let's give the glue the edge just for starters and see where I like this setting to be, and then we tune pretty much the same. I will try and stay close to 4 because that's usually how it folds down. Let's play it again and let's try that. Wow, so that's even less problem solving. This is just like, I'm here to dance. I'm not here to solve anybody's problem. That's what the compressor is saying. That 30.1 is just like, you want to pass, I don't care. Let's try the SSL. It's funny how you see each compressor like somebody, right? I will say one thing. This is my knowledge, passing it to you as a keyboardist, pianist, whatever, playing with people. It's the splash, man. It's that snare splash. If it connects to the next beat, it just will. People don't have to know music. It's about that snare splash. I think the SSL native already smoked the glue, but we're talking 5%. However, Cytomic the glue is more about the generic vibe of it at this point at 4-to-1. At 2-to-1, 4 dBs of compression. The SSL is more still in control of looking at the whole scenario. So, all right, send. SAND's pretty good here. I like that. It's a little bit in between the native and the glue, somehow. And yes, it has that, it's a little bit more complete. It's like bringing more bass to it, as Lovro said, like it's got a little bit more bass, but it's a little bit more choky. It's not choky, it seems a little bit more stable on the whole thing, right? But so far, the native has that, once you hear that splash connection, you want that, right? So let's try Satson. We leave the hardware for last, and then we go like, oh, horrible. We don't like the hardware. Let's see Satson. That's my Satson. That's my Satsons, yes. And this is the thing. Now here, it's doing that low end thing. And in fact, Lovro said like, wow, that low end. Okay, so the acoustic audio is more like, as I said, it's a mastering thing. It just has the low registry respected and put under like display, and the rest gets moved, but the lows are there static. So it's nice, but there's a bit of a, it feels weird. There's kind of not a disconnection, but parts move, parts don't. The Satson CS takes everything and just goes like massive attack on it. It just, as I said, massive attack, like blue lines, that stuff. Once you start going through the 4 dBs and past, a little bit, I think the Satson really has it. As to where the glue, in my opinion, I haven't tried it a lot, but it's about barely moving that needle. And in a way, both versions are not the average SSL compressor, which is the 4 thing, the close to the 4. So Sonimus must upgrade their Satson channel to M1. Yes, Martin, they do. Because they're losing so many sales. I don't get anything from them, but if it was them, I'm even affiliate with them. I never run links with them. I don't want to do videos in which you think I want to give you something so I get money. I couldn't care less. It brings me a bad image. I don't do that. So I am an affiliate with them, but I'm never, maybe for a video release for Burnley 73, I ran the affiliate links and then I stopped doing it because I just don't care. But it sounds good. It sounds really good. And it has that, that massive attack thing, that sinking down, but it splashes away, right, on the thing. So now how about the SSL? I'll play it with what? With, well, this one is either bypass or not. I should go change the thing. Maybe it sounds worse, you know? We tried that. Who knows? Let me just make sure that I have 230.1. Okay, threshold's the same, but when you switch ratio, the SSL needs to be recalibrated. So I'll mute my mic, press play, and try and get a vibe out of this. I could use the send gain return, but I will not see the meter anyway, so I need to just see where we are. Let's do this. This is even more interesting. So, okay, so here's the thing. I like if I had to probably choose which ones. Okay, here's the thing. Like the hardware unit, and I remember these now it feels like I've been all around the world, but they had SSL compressors all along. So in Nashville, 30 milliseconds, 2-1, but with an auto release was probably the things that were happening the most. Like they had a 2-1, 30 auto, okay? And just sending things through on the consoles, on the SSL bus compressors and stuff. On mixes that, as James said, really needed nothing at all. I heard just beautiful stuff when I was there. Week, 10 days, I don't even remember. It's just fast done. However, kissing the needle, as they say, just a little bit, just gave it something more, and it was kind of better, and they printed through it. Now, I remember, and I see that there, that too, I don't know if you saw me move the knob. I mean, you saw me, but I don't know if I had my hand on the knob and you couldn't see the knob. I can go down on the knob of the threshold as much as I want on 2-1. You will not get 4-1 to be hit, 4 dBs of gain reduction to be hit. It's this weird, okay? So it starts from 0, it starts compressing, and then for some reason, it just does not give you that 4 dB. You need to push so much gain to have 4 dBs of gain reduction on the hardware, and that's why we're not getting that much compression. Like I cannot get 4-1, I keep saying 4-1, it's wrong. I cannot get 4 dBs of gain reduction on the hardware unit, not even if I am at the minimum position of the threshold. What we notice, the calibration's fine. So what I would need to do is I need to push more signal in digital into it. So come out of the auroras with more gain. But just so you know, it just does not do it. We could try, but I think you saw it. It keeps from 0, then it starts moving, then it gets to 2.5, and then it goes to 2 3/4, 3, 3.5, and you cannot get a 4. While on these other plugins, it's linear. It just keeps as everything. It moves the position of the threshold, so it's compressing differently than 4-1, but then you keep going down, it keeps going up. It keeps going up, okay? So that's the main difference. We are getting 3.5 tops dBs of compression on the needle, and we're coming back from it. So it doesn't quite do any splash thing. It's an overall scenario. So I don't quite hear that thing. If you think about it, a 2-1 giving you that it's quite a lot. But VCAs tend to do it, The hardware is alive. And this, yes. So this was the last thing I was gonna add. So even if it doesn't do that splash, which I think the best I like is the SSL and Satson. I like both of them. The thing is that they almost kind of splash the same, but they don't. But it feels like they splash the same, but the environment is different. And so because of the contrast, it feels different, right? I like the glue, but I think it's sounding out of place. I heard it as a kissing the needle thing, the Nashville 32.1, and it's just really, really good, but it's out of place, okay? And Lovro says, like, Satson is funny. Is it possible that it has more bass and a brighter snare tone? It feels like it's scooping a little bit, right? But I hear that grit, that I don't know if it's saturation or whatever. It has a very massive portrait of the whole mix. SAND4, if we name the good things, has interesting low mids. And I think SAND is kind of appropriate. It brings up low mids. And honest, I mean, I know whatever, we could solo the tracks. I don't think I have low mids in this mix. There's some sawtooth stuff that is doing, but it brings almost a guitar amp low mid vibe, which is nice, but it's a cloud of things. It's not anything, and you hear it scoop it up, like bulge in the low mids, almost in the 3 to 600 there. It kind of feels a little bit more, it's giving you that, while the others are just they're flatter somehow, right? The native SSL bass compressor 2 is just, I still believe this is kind of the zero of the SSL native sound. Yes, okay. If I had to say the one thing that no plugin has on the hardware, again, micromanaging. There's somebody in there, there's a little dude that just cannot do it perfectly, right? He's really good. He's really attentive. He's really focused. Is fast, knows the song, but it never ends on the same fader position, right? It's alive, as James said. It's alive, and so our ears instantly get lost into it, and they go like, this is real. This is auditive content, right? The patterns of these plugins, our brain picks them up. We don't know, but we do. We pick them up instantly. And after 16 bars, we kind of go like, well, okay, yeah, I like this song. You have to take the information of the song, bring it into your brain, and calculate it, and go like, oh yes, this is a nice song, because I know that these kicks and snares make me remember about, some style of genre. I see a possible video game. Oh yes, it's a work you're doing, right? With analog gear, like with tape machines, tape is 10 times more than this. It's just a pain to use, but tape is 10 times more. It's just going through your skin, through your molecules, through, and it's just like, I don't have to understand it. It's just making me go somewhere, go places. I'm making a huge deal. If you want to hear me contextualize and say, do not ever buy everything you see here, ever, right? I need to move out to see that just don't, okay? Because it's so much money and it's so out of context for so many reasons. You see what I have here? It's many years. I have holes in my hands. I can't keep money on. It just keeps falling and I spend it. Do not do it. It just makes zero sense. I gave you 4 ideas out of 1 hardware unit. You can make all the music you want. All the music you want. Maybe in the future, if you want, you can add a couple pieces of gear, not the studio thing of gear, like a couple pieces of gear, because everything you pass through, there's no way. It's just better. It just makes things behave differently. It just makes people move differently. It just has. But the SSL bass compressor is an endless thing. It's got few controls and it does so much, right? It has that in 2-to-1, 30.1, it's one thing. In 32-to-1 auto release, it's another thing. I love the 0.2, 0.3, 0.6 on soundtracks, especially on buses, not on the whole instruments, but string buses, for example. It disappears, but it makes those strings present and transparent somehow, and it just lets you see through the strings into the synths and into the reverb. But the strings are no longer somebody playing strings in front of the orchestra, but it's just a body of sound. It's a beautiful thing. You can use it in many ways. So SAND4 isn't broken. The other people would use so much. So do you know the Warm Audio bass compressor? Martin says, I was just searching and that one is somehow affordable. I've tested some early warm audio stuff, I didn't like it that much. But now I'll get a bomb under the car. But yeah, I gotta be honest. This was over 10 years ago. It was before I moved to Berlin. So this was probably 2014, 15. And I had it again in Berlin when we did something at Abbey Road Institute in Berlin. They had warm audio Pultecs though, not the compressors. You know, I don't know. It's just the Pultecs were nice, but coming from knowing a lot of plugins, I was like, well, you know what? It just Pultecs, especially when you bypass them, you go like, what did you do? This was he's not watching my streams, but I had a fantastic intern. His name is Osam. He's from Cairo. And one of the many, but we had a lot of fun with him as well. With him, we invented the fact that the bypass, just the what is the levers, right? The switches, the white ivory switches on the Pultecs, were the shit switches, right? Because he was like, but it wasn't just shit. It was like shit. He would do that, right? And so I caught him a couple of times behind me. Was like, this is bypassed, this is engaged, and he was like, shit, and just spacing out, right? And I was like, all right, so this is the shit switch, right? Because you would just go as a sound engineer, as a talented drummer as well. He plays lots of instruments, ethnic instruments as well, lots of them, Egyptian stuff, beautiful. He knows a lot of acoustic recordings for those specific instruments. And you go like, I cannot get it anywhere else, when you use tons of plugins. So good pieces of gear have become famous for a reason. They have that thing, and it just doesn't make sense to build whatever. I sold my Pultecs. I no longer have them. And what did I buy when I sold them? But those to me were super, super expensive, but again, worth. They had a completely different sound. We built them from pieces of Pultecs that were supposedly coming cheaper to build. And then I was swamped in, nothing was working. I had a bag of pieces and stuff, and eventually we made it work. But I would rather go for something. I mean, they're making them now. So even for SSL, I'm a believer in secondhand market. So go meet somebody who's selling them, test it out, get help. I said Marco today, if you want me to just, there's a guy selling converters half an hour from where I live. So I said, if you want me, I can go. You pay for gas, back and forth. And maybe he will pay for a falafel durum in Marktschwaben, because there's a place that makes good ones near the Bahnhof. So he will probably also have to pay for lunch. But I can go there, check the A to D, and it's a great deal. So if you can find great deals, you give money to somebody who's in need of them for maybe buying something else, and you have a piece of gear that just, it works as good as if you buy a new one. I know a lot of friends of mine who are representatives for SSL, Dangerous Music, Focal, Universal Audio, you name it, SPL, whatever, Vice, Empirical Labs. I look at the brands and they will say like, don't say that. Because like, if they don't sell new stuff, how can they survive? Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's the world we live in. If somebody needs 2,000 euros and they're selling their 33,609 or something, and just don't lowball stuff, but sometimes you get very good deals. So I would rather get a proper thing, maybe through careful secondhand market search. I always like to go and inspect the stuff. I never buy online and get it shipped. So this I should add. I travel, I drive. My wife hates me for it because we make these trips that are never holiday. They're always like, go buy stuff. So I would go for, if it's an SSL bass compressor, I would either go the DIY route if you find the piece and sources. Otherwise, don't bother, because you will spend probably the same. I spent more on the pull text that I would have spent if I had bought a pair of Mercuries, which are really good clones, but they're very good. So, you know. Tegeler I'm friend with, they're in Berlin. They make very good stuff, and they make actually stuff that is unique, you know. So these people, the good thing is that it's refreshing gear. It's not just, they have ideas, they build them, and it's their thing. They're inspired by things, but they're not just copying stuff around. They always add that one thing that is cool. So, and Joren says, I'm curious to how much of the difference we heard is related to niche shape, you know, of the differences we heard are related to niche shape. Oh, okay, that's basically what I meant by reading something else. I noticed that some of my SSL plugins at 2:1 are slightly softer than others. It makes them grab and hit different. Absolutely. Like, we haven't even tried 10:1, which I don't know if you folks use it. You should not underestimate 10:1. When you go 10:1, you could try 0.01 or 0.1 or 0.3, all the fastest attacks, and any release, really, even auto, you know, you'll find that it just shaves off transients in a very nice way, and it becomes glossy somehow, the SSL thing. At least mine does. It's not a setting I would use all the time, but if you're tracking vocals or you're tracking bass and you have, like, you know, a dual mono setup, or you have two mics on, or you have bass DI and bass amp, you could track bass through an SSL bass compressor if you use it. So yeah, Martin says, I use it from time to time on drums. Attack at 10 and release on 0.1. Yeah, even on 10:1 attack 10. Yes, absolutely. But it's funny to try and use 0.01, right? The most stupid fastest attack. It just bites on things and it almost instantly lets go. And you make sure your meter is just ever so slightly moving sometimes. It's kind of a clipper thing. Obviously, it's not a clipper, but sounds really good. Other settings you might like, and yes, to answer Joren, the knees are absolutely, you see my hardware unit, it just cannot do 4:1. I keep saying 4:1. It just cannot reach 4 dBs of gain reduction on 2:1. At least on this piece of music, it just doesn't. It doesn't want to go. The 0.1 pushes it back, and for some reason, the 30 milliseconds attack, to me, almost felt like it was longer. And yes, the shapes are everything. And if you go 2, it's different than 4, and 4 is different than 10. Now, Gabriele is not here, but he's a patron of mine. I've mastered a lot of songs of his. He's a very talented DJ producer, and he's got record deals with very good labels. And we pitched masters to a lot of labels and things that he wanted to get produced on, which luckily, you know, some of these worked out. We used to do 4:1, 0.1 release, 1 millisecond attack. And he would come to the studio or send me stuff just for that SSL bass compressor. And I would know the settings. And he's not the only one. Like, there was another guy doing techno in Berlin, kind of a 10 milliseconds 4:1.1. Same deal. Like, I would know he needed that on the master, like right off, you know, nothing to fix, just the vibe. So these are all very good settings. They kind of, you know, it just, but the knee will change the feel of the attack and release for sure. Again, it depends. These people, we don't know what they sampled. The old SSL bass compressor, the Duality consoles. You hear how my hardware kind of sounds closer to the native. And these come from the same legacy of the newer stuff, not from the 4000 console model. The glue, I'm not sure. It sounds like something new inspired by the very old stuff. Probably Satson CS is more on the old side, like dark DBX chips. And SAND4 to me is kind of a boutique VCA compressor, which I appreciate that they made, you know, something. I don't know if they wanted to, but they made something different, which is cool, you know, but it's more open, it's more gentle somehow. I think if we want to clamp down things, it will become jerky, as we said, right? So Martin says, good to know. Next time I have a song, I will contact you to run it through the SSL. Yeah, it's super expensive though, gotta tell you. No, it's not. I used to do a lot of those things, and I mean, Gabriele is on Discord. He can tell you. Sometimes I don't think he writes there, but he sometimes check there on Passion. And we've done tons of masters, and sometimes we've done masters that he wanted in different ways to pitch them at different labels. I know you, Marco, maybe can vouch for that. In the EDM electronica sector, when you have labels you want to try and get signed to, you could even take the same mix and kind of master it differently to pitch it to different labels at the same time, just by knowing their catalog, right? So it's part of the producer's job to tell me as a mastering engineer, right? Okay, so look, this is what they've been doing for the past month. I think we could do this. Maybe it's more interesting. But then we do another master for these other guys. And if they say yes, then I sign with them, you know, managing. Producers and EDM, you cannot be like the guy playing guitar on the beach. You got to be on point, knowing where you want to go, when you want to release something. You have to see 3 months forward. But we used to use a lot of SSL, for sure. I've used the SSL on a lot of hip hop, techno, EDM, like future house, those genres, and rock music, of course. But when I mastered rock music, I've never used SSL bus compressors. Probably because I thought it felt like they had already that action. When I mixed my own bands or stuff I've produced or as a third party, I usually use the API, the 2500. That's a completely different thing. The 2500, you bring this guy to the discussion to the SSL, he's not scared. He's not scared. He's not flinching. You know, in a bar fight with the SSL native, the 2500, you know, just, you might not notice it, then it's scary. It's so good. It's so open, so mid-rangey, so nice on guitars. It's a completely different thing. But it's not the topic of our stream. All right. So this is 5 to 9. All right. We got to have dinner, folks. So Martin says, I'm still struggling with the API 2500 on the mix bus. Somehow I cannot make it work. I know. I had super spoiled people who taught me how to use it. Or just like, I do this. You know, when you see experienced people that they keep the settings, you keep them as a reference, right? And you start working out there. But the 2500 is another beast. It's kind of hard to the thing. But James says they wouldn't go to the same bars, SSL and API. Absolutely. It's so hard to explain. Like, what do you mean by that? Well, if you listen, I've said that many times, even on Pure Mix. I listen to a band. Now I don't produce and mix bands a lot. Actually, who have I done in the past 2 years? There's one guy we're co-producing stuff with, but in Berlin, I used to be third-party guy, right? So I have a studio, they book the studio, they want to mix it, they play, they record, they mix, and maybe they even master it sometimes, but let's say they give the master to somebody else. But I listen to the band, and I know for sure which bus compressor is theirs. Like, and I guarantee you could do it. It's no rocket science. You hear the band and you go like, this band is a Red 3 compressor on the mix bus band. Boom. This band is an SSL bus compressor on the bus. This band is a 2500. You hear it. When there's these elements of, well, and they're all rock bands, okay? They're all rock bands, but they could be a slightly indie, country. It might be a 2500 thing. It's a mainstream rock band. You could think it's an SSL. It's a Red 3 thing. It's I don't know. It has elements of electronica. Maybe you want to have the SSL on, but you just gotta hear it. You know, once you get used to them, you know. And we used to make fun of this stuff with everybody. I mean, I used to get made fun of because of these. you know, but I can even tell you like pool tech on the mix bus, or I don't know, SPL, or, you know, something else, you know, because it's just, you hear it. The combination of the mix bus will just give you which band is that. And you, or 33609 on the mix bus, that's another one, you know. These are all compressors I have. I have more compressors than EQs that I have, because I think the time domain, as I said many times, is hard to do on plugins, for sure. It's kind of the hardest thing. So 33609, completely different beast. Very hard to like sometimes. I use it more on drums than on basses. But I mean, Andrew Sheps, how many mixes, right? How many total masterpieces? 33609 or 2264, which, you know, then inspired the Class AB, you know, the first one, the 33609A and the AB, but 2264, that kind of diode bridge thing, right? That's the vibe, you know. Plugins in UAD form, he used a lot of it. It's just his tone, right? So Martin says, maybe an idea to do a stream on setting up an API 25 on the mix bus. Okay, we could do that. We move the camera. It's right here. Look, I'll show you. Move the GoPro ever so slightly here. And we see, then you see, that's a red 3 right here on the top. Let me go a little bit higher. Right? Here. Boom. That's the red 3 dude. And that's the API. There's a Transient Designer. And then there's the DTC. And then there's the Phoenix here. Right? The M3000, the 737, and the SSL. And a VCR, because I'm a VCR guy as well. I have these stuff. Then I sold my distressors. I sold my pool techs. I didn't sell my distressors. What am I saying? There's a Fatso, the 2 distressors, beautiful cultural vulture, 33609. These I got from a sound engineer. He's one of the best friends I've ever had in Berlin. P8, Edward, from Electric Lady, people. This comes from Brower's stash, not used, never used. I think it was a spare in case it broke. That's the thing. And then there's APIs, the Neves, the 550s, the great reverbs, and these are Roger Schultz here in the darkness of things. So, right. So here we are. Yeah, when I don't want the SSL sound, I will try the 33609. Yeah, impressive stuff. I mean, it took me years to do that. It's not that I bought. That's a beautiful setup. Thank you very much. I'm also interested in a 2500 stream. All right. We'll do a 2500 stream for. I have the waves and I have the UAD. I think if UAD renews my licenses, I'm the only person working with UAD who buys UAD plugins for a living. No, again, never get in touch with me. I have to call my one of my other fathers and say, please, Father Fab, help me out. The 2500. Oh, let me know. Do I have a Nebula library of that? No, I don't think so. I have waves. I've tried the Tone Empire. I didn't like it. Then a 33609 stream. Yeah. And then we have Mac DSP's version, which is kind of weird. Oh, I have Pink. I do have Pink. That's right. I was gifted Pink by the previous PR guy in acoustic audio, and I actually liked it. I remember we should try that. Did Pink get updated? They should do a Pink update. If they do a Pink update, then we have that. Right. So I think I've lost some messages here. Yeah, an old school. Yeah. I'm glad you like that setup, and you're missing the, what is it here? Hold on. I mean, it doesn't reach. You're missing my desk here, but I will not show you the desk. I will do it another time. But on the desk, there's the Rock Rupel, the Liaison, the Fuse EQ, the Weiss, the SPL Pass EQ, the Lavry converters, the Blues, and the monitoring console. You know what I actually need? I need more synthesizers. That's the thing. I will, no, I don't. But I would like to buy a Tempest, but I don't want to buy a Tempest. It's actually, no. I mean, 1600s, it's a little bit too much. But it's a beautiful drum machine. Oh, you know. You will never have enough synths. I know. And just the gear, I mean, everything you see here is gear. Not only has it come from, years. And sometimes I've traded stuff. I never got anything for free. I can tell you I got one thing for free. I could tell you I got one thing for free. Yeah, this one. I can be totally honest with you. In all my years of work as a product specialist, I got from a good friend, Stefan, this EQ. The Roger Schultz 2395, which is a beautiful equalizer. Fantastic. Let me turn it on. I got two. The second one I got from Roger, who's a super good friend of mine, and he's a genius. This guy, Roger Schultz, check him out. He does amazing. He knows everything about audio, and he will make any repair for you. He's worked with API, Neve, just to fix some of their stuff sometimes. API doesn't want to admit they're evil because Roger has come out of so many launch boxes fixed and improved in their PSU. That's the guy. And he's just, I don't even want to say what, he's got some amazing gear as well as a technician. People send him Mazalek transfer consoles for tweaking. Okay. So you take a $1,200 console and you send actually $12,000 console, pardon, and you send it to a guy to mod it, to make it better. Okay. That's the kind of guy you send stuff to. So that one I got for free. I got for free as Christmas gift. The rest I all bought. Even the VCR, even the JV1080, even the DW8000 that James is eyeing since the start of this stream. Right below the Christmas lights lies a DW8000 with its beautiful, warm, fantastic tone. Man, folks, this stream was awesome. I'm glad we could do this. I had a lot of time. I apologize, James, if we couldn't play the DW8000. Well, if you come here in summer, visit, you can sleep here, put a little bit of a bunk bed right below the DW. So when you wake up in the morning, you see the bottom side of that. All right. I mean a Korg DW8000. Yeah. Paying for... I should ban you from the chat. I mean a Korg DW8000. Yes. Which we know. It's just fantastic scene. James doesn't like it because he's boutique. And also, James will be happy to know you sold it because he's not just fond of it. And you probably, if you wanted to sell it. But I bought it in Berlin. From a guy, I think I paid $160 for it, to check my hair on camera. Monitor calibration course on Groove 3, it helped me learn. Oh, Joren, you did. Good. I mean, okay. So Joren is talking about the nastiest thing I've ever had. There is a company called Full Bucket Music. Compare the original with the plugin. Ooh, it wasn't worth carrying. So there's a plugin on the DW8000. I'm heading there. Thanks for the heads up, buffer size. Like that. I'll do that. My wife, the last week when it fell on the floor and it broke the keys. And I just pulled it out, disassembled it. She did it. And then she said, I think I fixed it. And we tried it out with someone help. We put it back together. And I tried and played it. And Valeria was like, put a piano sound to test it. And I looked at her and I was like, you have no idea what you're asking for. And I thought about James. It's like, he should have been here. Like, put a piano sound so it's easier to test. She meant to suggest a way to do a quick test, And I was like, no. And so she said, yeah, I know. Okay, I didn't mean a piano sound. I meant a normal sound. And I was still like, nope, there's nothing here that is normal. But Joren, I was saying, you bought your monitor calibration course on Groove 3 and it helped me learn REW. You bought a beast of a course. So I apologize with you if it is overwhelming. Thank you for buying it. Appreciate it. Because you know, I work with Group 3. So the courses you buy, I get money from it as well. So thank you very much. I still believe it's a painful course to watch because, it takes time. You cannot wing it. But I stand by what I say there. Look, I'll show you here. In my inserts, you see reverberate, right? Right? Reverberate has my calibration from the speakers that I have done in REW. So I use the impulses that I captured myself. So it's what I have been using since the day I moved in this room. And I believe it is time consuming. It's painful, but it's the best solution you can get for calibrating your monitors. And you can do it system wide. You can, it's there. So, if you need if you just lost, write me an email. I feel pity for I know it's a heavy course, but there's no kidding when you do that stuff. You gotta be methodical and do it, but it's free tools, rephase as well. It's just the best. I've used SonarWorks. I have endorsements with them. We work. It's good stuff. You can use it. It's easy. There's people who use ARC. It works. But the next level is really doing the REW and rephase work, crossover tuning. So I will not bother you with that. Last thing you want is me talking about. But I just wanted to show you, I do have monitoring through my IRs done this way. That's what I did. Speakers are there, the Bowers, and I do use that. So, I didn't understand the impulse section until the course. Thank you very much. I'm glad you did. Just take it easy, watch it again. I am sorry I will be in your room talking even more than I normally do, but it's for a good cause because calibration is important, right? So Martin says, do you think that calibration would be better than the built-in calibration of the IK multimedia? I think there is no calibration that they sell you that will equal you doing the work in REW and rephase, which you will learn through my course, which you actually have access to. Oh, no, you don't, because you need, I think, tier A. But you can do a month and then leave. Give you this trick. I am horrible at marketing myself. But you invited me to your room. Yeah, that's fine. Watch that thing. And I still believe that it's the best. It's simply the best. Convenience is a fantastic thing. And I've been using SonarWorks for the longest time. I had a team of people I had to use it because we had the same headphones. It was decided we should use it. SonarWorks, they're fantastic people. I'm friend with the people who are doing the development and their PR. They're very friendly. They're fantastic. They're the best. ARC is good as well. I think James uses ARC. Works. Definitely works. And IK Multimedia MTMs, I have friends who use it. It's all convenient. They're all very nice. You stand by a brand or another one, it's all good. The next level is, if you want to do it yourself and want to do it right, get the calibration mic and use REW and rephase, by all means. It's notches after. And you can do it in linear phase, where you have more latency. I almost never do linear phase. I have the profiles, but I use minimum phase, and I like it there. It's just best. Then you know how to do it, and you will do it for different rooms, different speakers. When you move, you just take your time. Or you buy a tree knob and you sacrifice the latency, because I don't think they have a zero latency thing, but the tree knob is so far the best solution. It's hardware based. It costs so much. These solutions, I'm telling you, are free. You just buy the microphone. You can use the microphone for anything else, even for talking. It's a microphone, So Arc Studio James uses perfect. I tell you, SonarWorks works best as well. It works great. Works best for headphones than for speakers somehow. I like the convenience of it. But I mean, when I use SonarWorks for the studio, it's you will still make your room better. Let's say that. You calibrate with those apps, it's much better than without. And if you have great, soundproofing and insulate, whatever, it will still make it better. So there's no excuse. But the problem with my course is that it takes a little bit of time because you have to understand what you're doing. You will make mistakes. Sometimes something doesn't sound right. You will hear it, but it's better. It just has such an imaging here. I've tried it with the Bowers and Wilkins. Trust me, the difference is night and day. There's a organic perception of where sound is that is just beautiful. But Trinov will break the bank for sure. And the all important thing is you need to buy a microphone that has profiles for it. And if you buy the one for SonarWorks, you have a serial number that gives you the profiles for your specific microphone. So you download the files and you use them in free software. That's perfect. And again, you can use that microphone for everything, vocals, whatever, room, tone, anything. Buy an SPL meter as well. Go on Amazon, go anywhere. Some people don't name shops or whatever. The stores. Buy it for $20. Buy an SPL meter. Excuse me. Buy an SPL meter. Don't use your phone. Buy an SPL meter that has SPL A, B, and C, and just hold it. I have it there. Used it twice and then put it back. But use an SPL meter because phones are not calibrated. They're not. You can use maybe an iPhone with some apps, but don't do it. Software is free. REW is free. My course is not free, but it's not too expensive. And the rephase is free. So you get a microphone and it works. And if you buy a microphone with the software, or maybe you can buy an Earthworks or something. It doesn't need to be bundled, but there might be a little bit too expensive, but pretty much anything. Oh, you do have a mic for IK Multimedia. Okay. Well, then you have the files. Okay. Right. Done. Boom. People, it's been an honor. 9:14 p.m. I'm going to dinner. I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to find my beloved wife looking at me like this. Like, are you done? Can we eat? And she is right, because we went way overboard, but at least, we had interactions with people and stuff. So thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, Joran. Thank you, James. Thank you, Buffer Size, for knowing that there's a DW8000 in software form. It has ascended, and it will find James and his hard drive and install itself. Thank you, Lovro, for the analysis. I don't know if you're still here, for you just joining us. It was great being here. We'll see each other on Fridays, 6 p.m. Central European Time on YouTube. And on Wednesday, I'm doing Video Game Composer Plays Video Games, which came from almost half an idea I had, and friends and people who have nothing to do with music and others that said music say, why don't you play video games and talk about the sounds, the music, the things you hear and stuff. So I'm playing Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl, and we're just getting a vibe for how they've done the music, the sound effects, while I get shot at by other people, by not other people, but NPCs, and just get super scared by huge fat pigs that have mutated. I have never played Stalker. That's the other good thing. Valeria, my wife, gifted it to me on my birthday on end of March, because it was on $3.99, I think $6.99 on Steam. I thought it would be the perfect scenario because it's an iconic soundtrack, the sound effects and the spatial audio. I knew the game, I knew the music as well, but I have never played it. So I've gone through the first probably mission or two sides and stuff. Martin also knows it. He's played that. And So we're doing that. So I'm playing games, shooting people, NPCs down, looting stuff, but I got a couple jump scares right off the bat on episode 1. This is like this huge pig. There's a clip on Twitch that is just so much fun. I just turn the corner and see this huge pig, and my brain goes like, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. Go, just click it. And we completely pave him down with the shotgun. And then I hide in the corner and I'm talking to the camera, and we see those flesh, big mutated pigs. There's just one pig that runs left to right into the warehouse, hasn't seen me, and goes to bother other NPCs. The interactions are fantastic. I cannot wait for Wednesday. I would like to play now, but I have other stuff to do. So I will quit it. Thank you very much, people, for being with me. I had to remind you about these two things. I'm thinking we'll add another stream somewhere. I'm thinking Mondays are hot now. I just don't know the topic that we could do. We could just play shit, you know, take a profit and play stuff for 2 hours, you know, single note stuff only. I don't know, just modulate. I still don't know, but let me know in the comments or whatever if there's a stream idea you would like me to do. I know it's Amiga April. Some friends wanted me to play the Amiga behind me. I don't know if I'll be able to do it because they have other stuff to do, but it would also be fun. But I don't sell it end of April. It's just because April is the Amiga month. Thank you. Check my channels, check my stuff. Thank you very much for the support. You that bought stuff of Groove 3, you that are on Patreon, check my things. You know where we are. We're all family. Thank you very much, people. I will see you next time. I would like to spend 2 words on why this video is possible. It happens because of my patrons. I have a Patreon in which I teach songwriting, scoring for video games and writing soundtracks, being creative, exploring hardware synthesizers, analog outboard, virtual instruments, sample libraries, mixing and mastering. We talk about recording. There's a lot of cool people in there. Check my Patreon out if you would like to support me. It really means a lot to me, and it makes these videos and the future ones possible. So thank you very much.